Okay, good afternoon, children.
Good
Good
afternoon.
afternoon.
Since online class tayo, gusto ko lahat ng camera nyo open para nakikita ko kayo. Hopefully, next school year, face-to-face na tayo. Is everybody present today?
Yes, teacher.
Yes, ma'am.
Sige, magro-roll call ako ha. Melinda Cabase,
Present, teacher.
Corazon Hover,
Present po, ma'am.
Romeo Magbitang,
Present po.
Rogelio Sancho.
Present.
Okay, very good. Everybody is present.
Good afternoon
Our
po.
subject for today is Christian living. And our topic is still about the book of Genesis. Last week, we discussed about Genesis 1 and 2 regarding the God's creation of living and non-living things and the creation of the first man and woman na siyang naging unang magulang natin. Sino na nga ang ating unang mga magulang? Si Pedro at Juana ba?
Adam and Eve.
Adam and
Adam
Eve.
and Eve, ma'am.
Eve. Okay. So ngayon, ipagpapatuloy natin ang pag-aaral sa Genesis 2 hanggang Genesis 3, kung saan nasasaad ang istorya ng buhay ni Adam and Eve sa Garden ng Eden. Ngunit bago tayo magpatuloy sa ating lesson, nais ko munang mapanood ninyo itong inihanda kong animated story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden.
When God created the world, He made the sun, the moon, and the stars. He separated the water from the land. He built the mountains and the forests. He made different kinds of plants and flowers. He created them in different sizes, shapes, and colors. He also made all the animals, big and small. He created the fish that would swim in the sea and birds that could fly in the sky. He created small insects that could fly and crawl. He was very pleased with whatever he had created. Then, after he created everything, he felt he needed somebody who would look after his creation. He then created the first man from the mud. He breathed life into him and named him Adam. Where am I? Who are you?
You are in my garden, the Garden of Eden. I am your creator, your Lord. You can live in my garden all your life. You will enjoy all the beautiful things I created for you and take care of them.
That's nice, but how did I get here?
You are here because I chose to have you here. You have been created in my likeness. You have powers over everything I have created on earth. You are the master of everything, and you will take care of them like your own. This is my wish and my design.
I'm so hungry. Can I have something to eat?
My garden is filled with trees and plants with the most delicious fruits of all kinds. You are free to eat the fruits of any tree here, except for the tree that stands in the middle of the garden. That tree is called the Tree of Knowledge. If you eat that fruit, you will die.
God had created everything from the trees, the plants, the animals, and the birds, but He had not named them. So He asked Adam to name them. Adam named them one by one. Adam felt alone. Nothing that God had created could be partner, so God made Eve. One day, when Adam was sleeping, he created Eve out of his rib. Eve proved to be the right companion for Adam. Of all the creatures that God created on earth, the snake was the most evil and clever of them all. One day, when Adam was tending the garden, the snake went over to Eve and started talking to her.
Hello, Eve.
Hello, who are you? I have never seen any animals speak here.
Oh, I have been in this garden before you and Adam came along. None of the animals talk because they believe Adam to be the master of them all, and so they are afraid to ask. God only speaks to you. He loves you more than any of us.
Oh, I see. And you're not afraid?
No, I am not. I think you are good and kind. I'm amazed by your knowledge and your strength. I can see why God made you in His image.
Okay, that's nice. So what was it that you wanted to ask me?
I was just wondering. You eat every fruit from this garden except the one from the tree in the middle of the garden. Why is that?
Adam told me that God has told us to not eat the fruit of that tree. He said if we eat that fruit, we will die.
I don't think that is true. I think God knows that if you eat the fruit from that tree, you will become wiser and stronger, more like God.
I don't know about that, but the fruit sure looks so tasty and it smells good too.
Yes, yes. It looks amazing, and I'm sure it tastes better than anything you have had before.
But I wonder if...
I don't think anything will go wrong if you eat it. Go ahead. Try it.
It sure is a wonderful day. I found a new kind of fruit in the garden today. I think I'll call it a melon.
That's great! I like the way you name these fruits. Adam, I wonder why God asked us not to eat this fruit. They look so nice and plump, and they smell so good too.
I don't know, Eve, but God said we would die if we eat it. We should listen to what He says.
I think that's not true. If this fruit was so poisonous and bad, why would He put it in the middle of the garden, right where we can pluck it? I'm sure it's some kind of a trick.
Why do you worry so much? We have so many other fruits that we can eat. When God gave us this warning, there should be some reason behind it. We should just stay away from it.
Yes, but I don't think it would hurt to take a little nibble, would it? I would love to know how it tastes. I don't think God is going to notice.
Saying so, Eve stood up and plucked the bright red shiny fruit from the tree of knowledge. She looked at it, admiring its beauty. She then looked at Adam and took a bite from the fruit. She then gave the fruit to Adam and asked him to take a bite as well. Adam took a bite from it. He smiled at Eve. Together, they finished the fruit. Adam and Eve were sleeping under the tree in the center of the garden when they heard God's voice. When they woke up, they were afraid. They felt guilty and full of shame. They tried to hide themselves behind the bushes.
Adam, where are you? Eve, why are you trying to hide from me?
Sorry, my father. We are naked, and we wish to cover ourselves.
But how did you know that you were naked? You were naked before, and you were never ashamed. Why do you have such a feeling now?
I don't know, Father.
Did you eat the fruit of the tree of knowledge in the center of the garden? The one I told you not to eat from.
Forgive me, my father. Eve gave it to me, and I ate it. I'm sorry I disobeyed you, my God.
Eve, why did you do this?
God, the snake tricked me into eating it. I was confused. I did not know what I was doing. I'm sorry, my God.
I gave you everything that you would possibly need. Anything that your heart would desire is available in this garden. I gave you only one rule to follow. But you disobeyed me. You have both failed me.
Forgive us, my Lord. We will not make any more mistakes. Forgive us this one last time. We were unaware of the consequences. We thought it was just another tree. It was not my fault. It was the snake that confused us.
The snake will get his share of punishment. That does not mean you are free from the consequences of disobeying me. Why did you find it so difficult to follow just one rule? You had everything else in this garden for yourself. No, once you have eaten the fruit of the tree of knowledge, you can no longer stay in the Garden of Eden. You now know what is wrong and what is right. You must leave the garden at once and live the rest of your life on earth.
But what will we do there, my Lord?
You will have to work hard, suffer, and grow your food from the soil of the earth. You will suffer pain and sadness, and finally one day, you must die. That is your punishment. Now, go!
Adam and Eve disobeyed God, and they were cast out of the Garden of Eden. They now had to work very hard to grow food. They had to build a house for shelter, and they eventually were going to die. They could have lived in the paradise forever if they had obeyed God's rule.
Okay. So, children, naintindihan nyo ba yung pinanood nyo?
Yes, teacher.
Okay.
Yes, teacher.
Yes, teacher.
What about Genesis?
yes.
And Genesis 3 tells us about how sin entered the world. It also shows us how sin enters our life. Adam and Eve chose to do what they knew was wrong. They chose themselves over God. And by doing that, they damaged themselves. They committed the original sin. The first sin that is passed on to us that affects all human. It is the actual, literal account of human history and explains every struggle we have today. Last week, may ibinigay akong assignments sa bawat isa sa inyo. Mga questions na i-research ninyo at ating tatalakayin ngayon upang mas higit nating maunawaan ang simula at epekto ng pagkakasala ng ating unang mga magulang. Nagawa nyo ba ang mga homework nyo?
Yes, teacher.
Yes, teacher.
Okay,
Yes, teacher.
Yes.
Okay. Tingnan natin.
Ma'am.
Nagawa nyo nga yan, ha? Oh, sige.
Ma'am.
Oh, ano yan, Romeo?
May I go out?
Ay, naku naman, mag-uumpisa pa lang tayo, may I go out ka na. Tapusin muna natin ito. Sagutin mo muna yung mga assignments na binigay ko sa'yo, ha?
Paniki muna ako, ma'am.
Ano na naman paniki yan? Ikaw talaga, Romeo. Ano yan?
Ano sa English yung paniki, ma'am?
Ba't?
Oh, ba't ako una?
Ikaw talaga, Romeo. Puta ka
Joke lang.
O sige,
Joke lang.
ito muna, ha?
Sige po.
First question natin. Alam ko ito, pina-assignment ko sa iyo to. How does the story of Adam and Eve's temptation interpreted by people of different faiths?
Ito po yung tukso, no, ma'am?
Oh, yan. Oo.
Okay. Sige, ma'am. Yung una po, base sa turo at aral ng Kristiyano, doctrine of the fall of man, came the doctrine of original sin. Si Saint Augustine of Hippo, siya din po si Aurelius Augustinus Hipponensis, also known as Saint Augustine. Siya po ay isang theologian and philosopher, no? From Roman North Africa, now Algeria. Tinrabaho po niya ito with the Latin translation of the epistle o yung mga mensahe to the Romans na interpreted by Paul as having said that Adam's sin was hereditary, namamana o nasasalin po. Like yung kamatayan na kumalat because of Adam, na lahat ay nagkasala. Meron po binanggit dun sa Book of Romans, chapter 5, verse 12, sin came into the world through one man. So, original sin became a concept that man is born into a condition of sinfulness and must await redemption. Ito pong turo na ito became a cornerstone of Western Christian theological tradition. However, not shared by Judaism or the Orthodox churches. At dumaan po ma'am yung mga daang taon na itong sistema na ito of unique Christian beliefs had developed from these doctrines. Yung pong ating baptism became understood as a washing away of the stain of hereditary sin. In many churches, although its original symbolism was apparently reversed. Sa ating pong Catholic Church teaches that Adam and Eve were historical humans personally responsible for the original sin. Ito pong paninindigan na ito was clarified by Pope Pius XII in the encyclical Humani Generis, in which the Pope condemned the theory of polygenism. Ito pong polygenism, isa pong doktrina ito or belief that existing human races have evolved from two or more distinct ancestral types, and express that original sin comes from a sin actually committed by an individual Adam. But ito pong concept of original sin does not exist in Islam because according to Islam, Adam and Eve were forgiven by God. Meron din pong mga ibang tradition like sa Gnostics. Itong si Adam and Eve daw po ay kinreate to help defeat Satan. O, diba? So, sa Islamic tradition, this story says that Satan refused to bow to Adam due to pride. So, iba-iba po ma'am. Iba-iba yung mga interpretasyon tungkol dito sa ating katanungan kung paanong itong temptation na ito ay bigyan kahulugan ng iba't ibang tao na may iba't ibang pananampalataya. Yun po ma'am.
Okay, very good. So, meron akong follow-up question pa. Ito. Who is the serpent in the story? What does the Hebrew Nahash mean? What does it represent?
The serpent that appears in Genesis 3 verse 1 in the Garden of Eden, ito pong serpent na ito ay naglalarawan or portrayed as a deceptive creature or tricker, mapanlinlang, who promotes as good what God had forbidden and shows particular cunning. Marami pa siya mga iba-ibang alam niyo po, tuso to. Pero matalino, kaya lang, sabi nga, sweetik. Sweetik siya sa mga kayang-kaya niyang linlangin. In the New Testament, the book of Revelation make use of ancient serpent and the dragon several times to identify Satan or the devil. Makikita po yan sa Revelation 12, 9, and 22. 20 verse 2. The serpent is most often identified with the hubristic Satan and sometimes with Lilith. Yun naman pong nahas, the word nahas means serpent in Hebrew. At nahas may refer to serpent in the Bible. Maya, ma'am, payag ka po ba na ang pangalan mo ay Cobra
Ay,
o Black Mamba o Viper?
ay,
Payag ka?
hindi.
Hindi. Pero sa Bible, ma'am, may pangalan pala ng mga tao na, na ganito ang pangalan. Katulad nung pangalan ng isang king of Ammonites, si Nahas, na nabanggit ito sa Book of Samuel and Chronicle in the Hebrew Bible. And itong si Nahas ay appears abruptly as the attacker of Jabes of Gilead, which lay out the territory he laid claim to. Pero napatay din siya ng pastol na si Saul. Ilan po, ma'am? At meron pang ibang king ng Ammonites na with the same name na naging mabait naman din siya kay David during sa kanyang paglalayag. At makikita po yan sa 2 Samuel na Book of Samuel, 2 Samuel. Ay po.
Okay, so last na lang. Last na, ha? O, ito naman.
Dami yata, ma'am.
What do you think Adam and Eve's real sin was? Are we all condemned to sin as a consequence of Adam and Eve's original sin?
So,
Sasabi mo rito.
the Catholic believe tungkol sa istorya ni Adam and Eve, kasi po sila, ma'am, live as an innocent and sinless life in the Garden of Eden until the serpent, which some Christians believe represents Satan. Ito po talaga yung tumukso sa kanila to eat the fruit God has forbidden them from eating. So, tingin ko po dito, ma'am, disobedience talaga. Sinuway nila, hindi nila sinunod ang habilin ng Panginoon. At yun nga, kinain ni Eve yung fruits at binigyan niya si Adam. And as a result, they are both banished from the Garden of Eden. So, are we all condemned to sin as a consequence of Adam and Eve's original sin? Traditionally, the origin has been ascribed to the sin of the first man, Adam, who disobeyed God in eating the forbidden fruit, and then in consequence, transmitted his sin and guilt by heredity to his descendants. Kaya nga, yung po, ma'am, itong doktrina na ito ay may basihan sa Bible. In other words, patuloy po tayo nagkakasala, just like the consequences of original sin to Adam and Eve, where they lost a friendship of God. They were no longer immune to suffering and death and had a greater inclination to sin and temptation. Because of this, Christ understood that those striving to live a Christian life would need a means of receiving God's forgiveness. Ay po, tayo na po, ma'am. Akala ko may ano eh.
Hey, that's
Yun lang po.
good. Galing yan. Talagang ginawa yung assignment. O sige, sunod naman, Rogelio, mayroon din akong binigay na assignment sa iyo, di ba? So ito naman, ano naman ang masasabi mo rito? Why does the Lord prohibit the fruit of the tree of knowledge?
God gave Adam and Eve a choice between trusting Him and trusting in their own knowledge. God's forbidding of the fruit was simply a test of their obedience. By providing the law about the garden, God gave Adam and Eve to choose whether they accepted His right as the Creator to use. The tree itself is nothing special. Chosen in the tree, the key factor was that God chose it Himself. So that's it. Because Romy has made a lot of explanations already, similarly on this matter.
So, based on that, what was Adam's sin? Was it eating of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil? What are the consequences of his sin?
Yes, Adam's sin was his being indiscreet and just following the prodding of Eve. When Eve was tempted by the devil, so to speak, he said that God forbidden it to be eaten by us of all the fruits in the tree in the Garden of Eden. So if we eat of it, according to Eve, we would surely die. But the devil, who is very shrewd, deceived Eve by saying that no, you would not die. You would even be equal to God. So in that matter, or without further ado, eat the fruit. And when he saw Adam, he gave it to him also. So actually, it was Eve who first sinned. Then Adam followed. So the effect of that explicitly foretold for this disobedience will come true. Man will return to the ground, for act of it he was taken. Death makes its entrance into human history. However, God is not just a punishing God. He also loves his creations. So he gave us a window to be saved. And that is the coming of the second Adam in the person of Jesus Christ. Now, all has been heard. Here is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind. For God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether it is good or evil. That's all.
Okay. Ito naman. How is it that it is not the Lord who accurately foretells the consequences of sin, but the serpent? Bakit kailangan pang yung serpent? Hindi naman, pwede namang si Lord kasi He is all-knowing.
Well, we must remember that the Lord has given us free will. And what is that? To make a choice of our own volition, through our own volition. Because he does not want Eve and Adam to act like robots. He wants their love for him to be coming from their exercise of free will. Since they disrespected God by disobeying him, they suffered the consequences. And naturally, we inherited this sin from our first parents. That's all.
Okay. Thank you, Rogelio. Ang galing din nitong si Rogelio. Talagang magsipag-research. Okay. Tawagin naman natin si Melinda. Ano naman kaya ang masasabi ni Melinda dito sa susunod na katanungan natin? What are the greatest seductions and temptations of the modern world? How do they relate to the seductions and temptations that Adam and Eve faced? Yes, Linda.
Teacher, according to Saint Thomas of Aquinas, the three sources of temptation in the modern world are the world, meaning the world, our worldliness and materialistic, then the flesh, meaning the carnal sins that we have, and the devil. So first on the world, meaning we become indifference and opposed to the God's plan. Meaning we don't obey, we don't follow God's plan. The plan of God for us is all good, but because of the sins, because of the temptation and the fall of Adam and Eve, we have that in our modern world. Example, the indifference and the opposition to God's plan. We become indifferent on our environment. So that's why we have this global warming, we have illegal logging, illegal mining, and we have nuclear power, we have world wars. So that's part of our indifference and opposition to God's plan, because God's plan, as I mentioned, is all good for everybody. So another example is in our economic life. So we know that the rich become richer and the poor, yung mga mahihirap, lalo nung naghihirap. So that's because of the indifference of many people, and they no longer follow what is the God's plan, what's God's want us from us. So that's one. Then another example is, which is napapanahon, is on our political life. So there are a lot of politicians who are involved in graft and corruption, because they no longer follow what's the plan of God. They are there to support people, meaning to serve people, but instead they become oppressor of the people. So on the other side, people are voting for politician based on what they can get from the politician. They no longer think what is good, what is best or good for everybody. So in effect, they're no longer, the people are not obeying God's plan, which is good for everybody. Then there are many other examples that we can see in our daily lives, but those are the three major examples that I can think of. Then on the second source of temptation is the temptation of the flesh. We have the greed, the pride. So example, we have the gluttony, we eat too much, and which resulted to our body deterioration. We have sickness and illness. Then we also have the sexual immorality. We have the, we have so much sins on the sexual inclination. Then we have corruption. We have disordered passion, mga bisyo, alak, droga, sugal, and any other vices that sumisira sa mga katawan natin, na dapat ang plano ni God sa atin is our body is a temple of God, but we don't take care of our body. So it's against, that's against God's plan. Then on the devil, the third source of temptation is the devil. Classmate Romy already discussed in details what's the devil's role in the temptation. So the devil is cunning, the father of lies, who twisted truth para maengganyo tayo at magkasala tayo. So other source. So on the second question about the correlation of modern world seduction and temptation versus that of Adam and Eve, we can see that Adam and Eve sinned because of the disobedience to God. So we can see there that they're also focused on the world. So instead of they were created, they have their spiritual life. They, instead of focusing on God's plan, God gave them everything, and with just one instruction not to eat, but still they disobey God. So we can see, same with the modern world, we see that we keep on disobeying God. We keep on walking away with God's plan, which is God's plan is for us to be good. Then we can also the temptation of the flesh. So we see that Eve just want to eat the fruit because it's good for the eye, and he wanted to know because the serpent allured and give Eve the half truth about the tree of knowledge. So same with the modern world, the devil is in our midst. So I can say that the same what happened in the Garden of Eden is also happening in our modern world. The devil, the temptation of the world, the temptation of the flesh was also there. Okay, that's all, teacher.
Okay. So how do Adam and Eve's role in this story differ? In what ways do those differences influence how we understand male-female relations and marriage today?
Yeah, teacher. Adam and Eve was created to be man and woman. So they are the first family. So they got married, and they're wed by God, then they become the first family. So the role of the Adam and Eve is to continue the plan of God for procreation. So they are the first family, so they have children. So that's the difference of Adam and Eve, man and woman. So if we can relate that in current situation, in current world, marriage should be between man and woman. There should be no same-sex marriage. As we already discussed this in details during our LGBT discussion previously. So the same concept that marriage should be between man and woman, and there should be no same-sex marriage. That's all, teacher.
Okay, very well said. Galing talaga. Okay, let's hear from Corazon. I think ito naman yung binigay ko sa iyo, Corazon. What's the relationship between knowledge and sin?
Yes, ma'am. Ang sagot ko po dyan ay relationship ng knowledge and sin ay knowledge, as we all know, in its literal sense, is the awareness of something. In the Catholic Church, it is the fifth gift of the Holy Spirit, which is often confused with wisdom and understanding. Like wisdom, knowledge is the perfection of faith. Habang ang wisdom is giving us the desire to judge things according to the truths of the Catholic faith, knowledge is the ability to do so. In contrast with sin naman po, ang sin as defined in the Catechism of the Catholic Church, paragraph number 1850, is an offense against God. And it has been defined by Saint Augustine as an utterance or a word, a deed, or a desire which is contrary to the eternal law. In this story of Genesis 3, Adam and Eve were made aware by God not to touch or eat of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, or else they will die. But still they disobeyed God. So from this offense, they have to suffer the consequences. Yun po bang alam mo na, may knowledge ka na ang isang bagay o gawain ay hindi dapat gawin sa mata ng Diyos, pero ginawa mo pa rin, then ito ay kasalanan at may parusa. Yun po ang sagot ko doon, sister, teacher.
Okay, so ano naman yung what was gained and what was lost in the fall?
Dito po sa fall ni Adam and Eve, what was lost was on the part of the serpent. Sinabi ng Diyos at makikita natin sa Genesis 3 verse 14 na sa lahat ng hayop, ikaw, sabi niya sa ahas, ay gagapang na ang gamit mo ay ang iyong tiyan. Alikabok lamang ang iyong makakain. At kayo ng babae ay pag-aawayin ko at paglalabanin ko palagi. Ang binhi ng babae ay dudurog sa ulo ng mga binhi mo at sa sakong ng binhi ng babae tutuklaw ang mga binhi mo. Explain ko po yan later, ma'am. Para naman po sa babae, ang sabi ng Panginoon sa kanya ay, sa pagbubuntis mo'y hirap ang daranasin at sa panganganak mo'y sakit ay titiisin. Ang asawa mong lalaki, iyong nanasain, pasasakop at susunod ka sa iyong asawa. At ito naman ang sinabi ng Diyos na kaparusahan kay Adan. Dahil nakinig ka sa iyong asawa, isinusumpa ko ang lupa. Tahirap ikaw ay magbubungkal, dahil dito magmumula ang iyong pagkain. Mga damo at tinik ang iyong aanihin, at halaman sa gubat ang iyong kakainin. Sa pagod at pawis, pagkain mo'y manggagaling. Maghihirap ka hanggang sa malibing. Dahil sa alabok ka ng galing, sa alabok ka rin babalik. Ma'am, because of their sin against God, they were expelled from the garden and punished with physical and spiritual death. Ano naman itong spiritual death? Ang kanilang status na sana mamuhay with God forever in paradise ay natuldukan. Their bodies became mortal and corruptible because from dust they were created and unto dust they will return. At ang spiritual death naman na sinabi ng Panginoon sa kanila ay the separation from God in the paradise. Pinaalis sila sa paraiso na sana ay forever na silang mamumuhay free of pain, struggles, and sufferings. But what was gained? As you asked me, teacher, ano naman ang nag-gain sa kanilang mga pagkakasala? We have seen in the story that after all they have done, we can see that God is still just and merciful. And we can refer here the analysis of the first gospel, which is the proto-evangelium, Genesis 3 verse 15. God is the only one who can save us from the consequences of sin. And Genesis 3 verse 15 says, and I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. The seed of the woman foreshadows the virgin birth. Sin entered the world through a woman, and salvation come through the woman. Jesus' heel was literally nailed to the cross, but Jesus delivered a mortal blow to Satan on the cross through his resurrection. Yun po ang sagot ko, ma'am, kung ano ang naging nila sa kanilang pagkakasala.
So ito naman, how do you see God the Creator in this story of the fall
Nakikita ko po ang
life in our present time and in our life?
yes po. Sa ating nakikita sa story ng fall dito sa Genesis 3, we have a God who is just and merciful. As mentioned in the Catechism of the Catholic Church, paragraph 410, it says that after the fall, man was not abandoned by God. God calls him, and in a mysterious way heralds the coming victory over evil and his restoration from the fall. The passage in Genesis 3 verse 15, the proto-evangelium or the first gospel, is the first announcement of the Messiah and the Redeemer. The battle between the serpent and the woman, and of the final victory of a descendant of hers. In Catechism of the Catholic Church, paragraph 411, the Christian tradition seen in this passage is the announcement of the new Adam, who because of his obedience unto death, which is death on the cross, makes amends for the disobedience of Adam. The woman announced in the proto-evangelium is Mary, the mother of Christ, who is the new Eve who was preserved from all stains of original sin, and by a special grace of God, committed no sin during her earthly life. In our life and in our present time, we are taught and believe that we have a merciful and compassionate God who is always forgiving, who is always waiting for us to repent. Ma'am, yun lang po ang sagot ko. Pwede po bang i-elaborate nyo, ma'am, and sagutin yung second question ng number 11?
What ray of hope? Okay. God is the only one who can save us from the consequences of sin. Genesis 3:15, sabi mo nga, it states that, and I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. The seed of the woman foreshadows the virgin birth. Sin entered the world through a woman, and salvation would come through the woman. This would be more than an ongoing battle between humanity and snakes. It is a battle between the people of God and the people of the serpent. Jesus' heel was literally nailed to the cross, but Jesus delivered a mortal blow to Satan at the cross through the resurrection. Despite our ongoing struggle with Satan, we can be confident that the God of peace will soon crush Satan under your feet. Thanks to the resurrection, which is stated in Romans 16:20. Genesis 3, verse 20 to 21 says, and Adam called his wife's name Eve, because she was the mother of all living. Also for Adam and his wife, the Lord made tunics of skin and clothed them. Adam made a statement of faith in order for God to make them a garment of skin. An animal had to die. blood had to be shed. Without the shedding of blood, there is no forgiveness of sin, as stated in Hebrew 9:22. Chapter 3 ends with a new name, a new clothes, a new home. What Adam lost, Jesus came to restore. So, in conclusion, Romans 3:23 says that we've all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And in Romans 6:23 says the price of our salvation is death. The good news is that in Romans 5:8 says that while we were sinners, Christ died for us. He took our punishment on the cross. All we have to do is to confess that Jesus is Lord and believe in our heart that God raised him from the dead. In Romans 10:9, we can find that. Let we do that. If we do that, rather, the Bible promises that we too will be saved. Is that clear, children?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, may
Yes,
I
ma'am.
add po, because I have read regarding the glory of God, meron pong quote si Saint Irenaeus. At sinabi po niya na the glory of God is a human fully alive. Error indeed is never set forth in its naked deformity. Lest being thus exposed, it should there be detected. The glory of God is man fully alive, but the life of man is the vision of God. Human action takes an ever greater significance when we consider this statement. For if God's glory is man fully alive, man's life must be a noble thing. So ang buhay pala ng tao ay napaka-noble since we are made in the image and likeness of God. Yun lang pong masasabi ko, teacher.
Very good. Ang gagaling talaga. Yes, Robio, you are raising your hand. Why?
Tanong ko lang po, ma'am, is temptation a sin?
Yes,
Kasalanan ba siya?
if you give in to the temptation, it is sin. Pero kung hindi ka naman bumigay doon sa temptation, you did not commit any sin. Okay?
Well said.
Parang invitation pala to.
Talaga, very good kayo lahat. Sige, lahat kayo may plus 10. So in summary, ito yung mga pero hindi na natin i-discuss further dahil lahat naman ito na talakay na natin at saka we're running out of time. Andyan na yung susunod na klase. So for now, mag-goodbye muna tayo and see you next Saturday para sa susunod pa nating mga lessons. So mag-aral mabuti ha, basahin muli yung kasunod na mga chapters pa ng Genesis ha. Okay. Thank you. From Team A, muli ito po ang inyong lingkod, si Mariga Mayo, kasama ang aking mahuhusay na mga estudyante, si Brother Romy Magbitang, si Sister Corazon Hover, Sister Mel Cabanes, and Brother Roger Sancho na talaga namang ako'y nagpapasalamat ng lubos dahil ngayon lang siya nagpakita actually sa ating session. Maraming salamat po.
Okay, thank you sa BA Academy. Yay! Okay, so i-open na natin ang floor for any questions, comments, or additional inputs. So reminder lang po, paki-raise lang po yung hands para alam namin kung sino yung tatawagin. At i-open yung mic kung kayo na po yung natawag. Okay, so sinong gustong unang magtanong or mag-comment or additional input?
Comment na lang, wag nang tanong.
Oo nga, ang dami nyo ng tanong eh. Sinagot nyo na. Okay, sino? Magtatawag ako?
Comment.
Sister Mines, any comment or question? Paki-unmute lang po.
Congratulations sa group ni Takeya. Mukhang nakaka-intimidate kayo sa mga susunod na group. Salamat sa inspirasyon.
Okay, thank you, Sister Mines. So, sino po gusto mag-add? Question. Sister Beng.
Meron kasing tanong kanina. Gusto ko lang, ako tanong ito ha. Romy, sorry ha. Magtatanong ako eh. Kasi may tanong kanina. May tanong kasi kanina. Meron kayong discuss kanina. Paanong nalaman ni Satan mo na mamamatay sila? Kasi siya yung nagsabi, di ba? Ay, narinig, sinabi na God doon sa unang di ba? You don't eat this because you will die. Pero, paano din niya nalaman yun? Nakikinig ba siya? Nakikichismis ba siya? Or what? Or was he present during the time?
Sinong sasagot?
It's not, may I?
Oh, sige po.
Yes, Brother Roger.
Yeah, it's not clearly stated in the Bible, but for sure, since Satan was already there in the Garden of Eden, that means after the quarrel of the angels in heaven, that means that he was aware of what's happening there.
Okay, Sister Beng?
Ewan ko. Hindi ko alam kung yun answer eh. Kaya ako nagtatanong.
Sabi ni Brother Roger, di ba?
Nandun na.
Create na yung yung Garden of Eden.
So present na.
So
in other words, Satan was Marites. Marites pala si Satan, ganun ba yun? Hindi ba? Kasi it's supposed to be a conversation between God and
tanong natin si brother mo, nag-raise siya ng hand.
Okay.
Yes, brother mo.
I agree with the answer of Roger. Actually, sa mga kasulatan ng mga Hudyo, sa Bible, meron silang, wala ito sa Bible, meron silang parang article about itong mga demons, mga fallen angels. So, tama sabi ni Roger na before the creation of the world and living things, ando na yung mga anghel. Tapos, nagkaroon ng battle between the good and the bad angels. So, yun. Talagang Satan should be there also. Meron po yung ganun ko? Okay. Anyway, meron na akong idadagdag, parang concept din. Hindi man concept, ito mga nangyayari ngayon sa atin, sa buong mundo. Kasi nung National Bible Festival, narinig kong isang bishop ng isang Protestant denomination na nagsasabi ng yung dalawang terms, I don't know if you have heard of these terms, yung post-truth. Ibig sabihin na after truth, and then post-church, so after the church. So pina-explain ko sa kanya during our last meetings, no? Anong ibig sabihin ng dalawang terminologies na ito? So naisip ko lang, no? Kasi, di ba, yung temptations, no, nabanggit ninyo, ay galing sa world, sa flesh, saka Satan. No, di ba? Yung tatlong yun, di ba?
Yes.
So ngayon, si Satan, mukhang busy si Satan ngayon. Nagkaroon ng mga, kasi subtle, no? Subtle lang si Satan. Yung kanyang luring device, no, is subtle. No, paano man, parang the thing looks good, no? Looks luring, tempting. So, pag mahina yung flesh mo, o yung talagang madadala ka. So ngayon, parang nakikita ko, ano, si Satan has been very active, no? Tempting, especially mga leaders, no? Mga especially sa church, no? Church leaders, no? Nagkaroon tayo ng mga scandals, no? So palagay ko malaking gagawan ni Satan doon. Mga sex scandals, mga money scandals. So malaki ang gagawan ni Satan. So ngayon, anong ibig sabihin ng post-truth? Anong ibig sabihin ng post-church? Okay, yung post-truth daw, sabi ni yung bishop na nakausap ko. Ito yung mga itong concept ngayon, realities ngayon, mga especially mga kabataan, no? Hindi na siya masyadong naniniwala, no, sa mga scientific truth, no, sa mga religious or theological truth. So sa tingin nila, kung ano yung convenient sa kanila, no, yun yung kanilang paniniwalaan. So, yan, sabi nga, relativism. No? So, anong relatively good sa kanila, yun ang kanilang paniniwalaan na truth. So, sa ngayon, marami tayong, of course, we are very aware, no? Itong disinformation, mga false truth. Bagay, ano yun, hindi pwedeng pagsamahin yung false sa truth, no? So, ito yung, sa tingin ko, may kagagawan dito si Satan. Very subtle lang siya. So, ito mga nangyayari ngayon sa mundo. Ito si Putin. Ito si, ang pangalan ng leader ng China, si Xi Jinping. Liping ba yun? So, mukhang malaki yung influence, no, ni Satan sa mga thoughts nila. So, yan, medyo critical o medyo napaka-seryoso itong culture nito, no, yung post-truth. So, mga kabataan, kung ano yung mga truth na binibigay ng simbahan, so, mukhang hindi nila tinatanggap. So ano man yung post-church? So itong post-church naman ay related dito sa post-truth. So may mga teachings ang church, no, mga respective churches na hindi na pinapaniwalaan ng mga flock members, yung mga members nila, no? So halimbawa itong teachings ng church about abortion, about sex, same-sex marriage, ay nako, ang dami nang hindi naniniwala rito. In fact, madaming mga countries, no, na ina-adapt na itong same-sex marriage. And surprisingly, itong Ireland, supposedly Catholic country, no, in-adapt nila itong same-sex. So, ito yung post-church. Hindi na pinapaniwalaan yung mga mga advices, mga teachings sa church. So ngayon, ano yung very critical saka urgent call ngayon? Tama-tama naman, ang ating Pope Francis, saka yung mga obispo natin, for the first time, no, yung mga obispo natin, for the first time, nagkaroon sila ng united stand. So about the importance of what you call this, of discernment, no? Discerning process, no? Using, of course, the Word of God, tapos guided by the Spirit to guide us, no? To guide us in choosing the right national saka local leaders. So sana maging aware tayo sa dalawang kulturang ito, no? Yung post-church, post-truth. Yun lang. Okay.
Beng? Beng?
Linda.
Ay, you were asking paano nalaman ng devil na they will die?
Oo.
Oh. Yung dun sa conversation nila. Because
Nino?
between
God.
Satan,
God.
Satan
God.
and Eve. Tingnan mo ha, sa Genesis chapter 3, sabi nung devil, did God really say you shall not eat from any of the trees in the garden? The woman answered the snake, we may eat of the fruit of the trees in the garden. It is only about the fruit of the tree in the middle of the garden that God said, you shall not eat it or even touch it.
Okay.
Dinagdagan ni Eve, no?
Oo.
Or else you will die.
Okay.
So sinabi na ni Eve, kaya yun natandaan mo yung sinabi ni Bishop Pabilio. Pag merong magtatanong, uy, is it true? So nag-fishing siya for information. So part siya ng chismis daw, kaya be careful, may magtanong sa'yo, uy, totoo ba yun? Kumukuha ng information. So it was Eve who unknowingly gave
the info to Satan. A follow-up question. Total Genesis method na rin lang tayo, no, di ba? Iniisip ko lang, o yung panahon na yon, the situation is very, sa kanila, very pleasant, I'm sure binigyan sila ni God ng role, di ba?
Yeah.
To take care of the yung kasi during that time na kinausap siya ni Satan, well, what could have been the situation na nakipag-usap nga si Eve sa kanya? Is it because hindi naman niya alam na si Satan is evil, or ginawa niya yun sa lahat ng animals? Nakipag-usap ba talaga siya?
Sa verse 1, sinabi dito, now the snake was the most cunning of all the wild animals that the Lord had made. So talagang siguro nag-change siya ng anyo or whatever na si Eve. Hindi niya alam kasi of course wala namang devil sa paligid nila eh. Bigla lang pumasok, intruder pa nga si Satan eh.
Okay.
Yung description sa kanya parang Leviathan, dragon, siguro natakot din si Eve. Ano ba ito? Kinausap siya, napasagot siya. Cunning si Satan. That's why yung mga temptations niya sa tao, hindi natin napapansin, yun na pala, temptation na pala yun.
Oh, at the same time, iniisip ko lang din could it have been that Eve was idle that time?
Yes, siguro. Kasi
Diba?
sila lang dalawa lang di ba? And the rest are all animals. Pero si Eve kasi was always looking at that fruit, at that tree. So alam na agad ni Satan na madali siyang matempt. So meron na siyang clue. Siguro nagmasid-masid na yun. Kasi snake siya, di ba? So ang babae talaga, na-attract through the eyes, di ba? Yung temptation natin. Kung mag-shopping, yung eyes natin nakatingin kung saan-saan. So,
okay.
So,
Pwede
thank you.
Pwede akong dumagdag.
May dagdag daw.
Sino?
Ako.
Magtawag lang iba. Sige. Sister Mines? Ikaw?
Parang ang teaching palagi, even nung catechism, nung bata pa tayo, pag lumapit ang temptation, you do not entertain. Kasi nga, sabi nga ni Brother Mon, very subtle. Hindi yan mananakot. More on, kawawa ka naman, wala kang kaibigan, wala kang pera, very subtle. Sabi nila, anything that is negative, pwede yung negative sa COVID, anything that is negative, anger, anger, you are sad, basta yung lahat ng negative, you're envious, galing yan kay Satan. So the moment you feel na nawawalan ka ng hope o nabibwisit ka or things like that, temptation yun. And mag-pray. Huwag entertainin. Hindi yung kagaya ng ginawa ni Eve na, ay, maganda yung fruit, ay, makintab siya. Parang it smells good. Nag-i-indulge siya eh. Sinabi na nga bawal. Do not, di ba sabi, do not. Pag sinabing do not even look at it. Bawal eh, di ba? So, yun lang.
Okay,
Salamat
thank you. Brother June, you're raising your hand.
Tanong ko lang kasi, bakit ang devil? Kasi ang paradise, ang Eden, holy place yan eh. Holy place yan ng God, no? Pero bakit nakapasok ang devil? Anyway, sadyang talagang ang layunin talaga ng devil ay sirain yung plano ng Diyos, no? Kaya natanong ni Sister Beng kung bakit pumasok yung kamatayan, bakit alam ng devil yung kamatayan. Kasi ang kamatayan ay taglay na mismo ni Satanas, no? Sapagkat nawala na sa kanya yung biyaya, yung grace na nagpapabanal, no? Yung tinatawag na sanctifying grace. No? Kaya yung ginawa ni Satan ay gumagawa na siya ng upang mandamay na lang sa kamatayan. No, actually si Satanas diyan patay na siya eh. Wala na sa kanya yung biyayang siya'y buhay kasi taglay niya na yung kasalanan no. Wala na sa kanya yung banal biyayang nagpapabanal o biyayang nagiging buhay, nagkakaroon ka ng buhay pag ikaw ay banal, no. Kaya nga ito yung layunin talaga ni Satanas na tuksuhin niya ang tao upang idamay din niya, no? Madamay yung tao at sirain yung plano ng Diyos, no? Kaya nga ganoon na lang. Kaya nga ang tayo mga tao, kapag taglay natin ang isang kasalanan, nawawala sa atin yung biyayang nagkakaroon tayo ng buhay, no? Yung biyayang nagpapabanal sa atin, yung sanctifying grace. Kaya pagkakaingatan natin na huwag tayo magkasala, no? Upang manatili tayong buhay sa mata ng Diyos. So yun lang, Sister Brad.
Thank you. Brother Je, raise ka ng hand.
Medyo wala akong boses. Pakibasa yung aking message. Nandun yung tanong ko na medyo hirap ako magsalita. Thank you.
Okay, ito yung question ni Brother Je. Is it true that the story of Adam and Eve is an influence from Mesopotamia literature like Epic of Gilgamesh? Sino gusto na sumagot?
Can I try to answer that?
Okay, Brother Rico.
Quick lang. So basically, there is since according to archaeologists and other historians, there's actually a lot of similarities between the stories of the people around Mesopotamia, basically yung sa Middle East. Kasi kapag naalala natin, the book of Genesis is not actually written by one person. We know that it was written during Babylonian exile. And not only that, but it was also compiled, diba, una word of mouth, tapos sinulat ng nila, depende sa tradition, diba, yung priestly, prophetic, yung priestly tradition, yung different traditions. So we actually see many similarities, not just in yung sa creation story, the concept of water, the river, kasi of course yung Tigris and Euphrates River, very famous yun sa Iraq. And we also see many similarities as well. Now, going specifically to Brother Gerald's question, it might not be exactly the Epic of Gilgamesh word for word, but based on what happens in other cultures, tulad na dito sa Pilipinas, yung mga creation story natin, for those nakakaalala yung Malakas at Maganda, influence siya ng mga cultures ng India, Southeast Asia, ganon. So in a way, looking at it historically, it is very plausible na even if it is not exactly word for word, there are some similarities. So, and if we look at it from the big picture, the concept of human frailty, the weakness of human nature is a very constant theme for many cultures. So we can say there's probably an influence, but not exactly the same. That is all.
Okay. Thank you, Brother Rico. So, pang iba, Brother Mon, are you still raising your hand? Naka-raise pa yung hand niyo.
Okay. Yeah.
Mahina po, mahina.
Okay. Totoo yun, no? Yung question niya, no? Question ni Gerald, talagang may influence. No? Kasi malaki ring influence ng di ba, si pangalan nito, si Abraham, galing sa Babylonia siya, di ba? Ano yung pangalan? Ur. So, kung yung mga thoughts noon, no? Carry over, no? Sa mga descendants. Yung Bible, no? Just to clarify, sinabi ni Rico, ang Bible ay ginawa after the Babylonian exile. No, it was started nung time ni Solomon. Tapos na-edit siya nung Babylonian exile. Si Ezra, if you will remember. So inedit nila because wala na silang kingdom, wala na silang land. So doon sila nagkaroon ng magandang opportunity to look back. No? So na-review nila yung mga kasulatan. No? And then they finally edited yung time ni Ezra. So yung editing, yung time ni Ezra. Pero yung pagsulat ng Biblia, I think, no, started from the time of Solomon. Of course, base yon sa mga tradition na galing kina Moses.
Okay, thank you. Brother Roger, nag-raise ka ng hand.
Yes, I am asking a question.
Okay.
Why did God allow in the first place the presence of the devil in that holy place called the Garden of Eden?
Okay, so who wants to answer that? Sana. Sister Marie?
Actually, yung question na yan, assignment mo, Brother Roger, di ba? Kasama yan sa assignment mo, Brother Roger, di ba? Hindi mo yata na-research yan.
I think parang related yan dun sa comment din o question ni Brother June eh.
Tama. Tama.
Ah,
Related ka.
Hindi, pwede masabi ko, pwede sumagot.
Yes, yes po.
Kasi ang devil, ano naman yung katangian niya no? Iba siya Meron siyang katangian na nagbabalat kayo siya. Marahil yung katangian niya, ginamit niya at nakapasok siya sa holy place, no? Sa Eden. Marahil pati ang Diyos na isahan niya. Kaya yung katangian
Kasi
ng devil, nagbabalat kayo siya, nagkukunyari siya, itsura siyang hayop lang doon sa loob ng Eden parang certain lang ang itsura niya
Nag-metamorphose, ha?
So, siguro marahil gano'n.
So, natalo na siya doon sa era sa heaven. In fact, one-third of the angels were defeated by the good angels. Now, bakit naman doon nilalagay sa Garden of Eden? Samantalang ang intention nito ay walang katapusan na kaligayahan. Pagkatapos,
holy place nga yan
Oo. Bakit doon hinayaan pumunta si Satan, the devil doon?
Kasi Brother Roger, kung wala yung Satan doon, walang temptation. Kaya kailangan.
Chris, may I add?
Sister Bel.
May I add? Alam mo nung habang nagsasalita sila, naisip ko lang. Could be God allowed it also. Just like what He did with Abraham, di ba? Tinest niya si Abraham Could be na tinetest din niya itong mag-asawang to kung susunod ba or hindi. Kaso they failed the test nga.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Last question. Irene, Sister Irene.
Yes po. Naririnig ko ba ako? Maingay kasi
Okay,
dito.
yes.
Yung tungkol sa bakit nakapasok yung devil. 'Di ba lahat naman tayo po binigyan ng free will ni Lord. Masisiguro si Lucifer, binigyan niya rin ng choice. So, for example, yung katulad kay correct me if I'm wrong kasi yun ang nasa isip ko, baka naman mali. Katulad kay Job. Diba, yung devil, kinausap niya para to test nga yung faith ni Job na binigyan siya ng mga sakit kung hanggang saan yung faith. So, maaari nga po, sabi ng sinundan ko na nagsabi to test the faith ng ginawa nilikha ni Lord na si Adam at si Eve. Yan lang po.
Okay, thank you, Irene. Brother Danny, kasi magbe-breakout session pa po tayo
Kapraso lang to, kapraso lang.
Sige. Question lang po question lang.
Question lang. Ngayon, in our world now, in our modern times, how can we possibly avoid temptation when temptation is left and right, all around us?
Madali lang yan.
Yan yung nasa breakout room.
Yan pa yung question doon sa breakout room.
Okay.
Okay, so let's start with the breakout room. Ilang minutes yung inalaw? Sino ba mag-ano? Je or sino nag-a-arrange ng breakout
Na-arrange ko na po.
So ilang minutes ilagay mo, Je? 15 minutes?
15 ba? Dali
Kasi hanggang 6 tayo Pwede tayo hanggang 6.
Sige po, 15.
Ilang groups?
Same, 7 po.
Okay.